Good afternoon, one and all present here. It is business. I am Abhishek Mutkure, first year MBA Digital Marketing student. In today's ever-changing business landscape, ethical leadership is a crucial for achieving long-term competitiveness. This session promises valuable insight into the principle that drive sustainable success through ethical leadership. Ethical leadership is a fundamental approach that can transform the way of organization operate. Leadership emphasizes value integrity and well-being of all stakeholders. It also contributes to the long-term competitiveness and success. We are privileged to have a distinguished expert with us today. Please join me in welcoming our esteemed speaker, Mr. Vinod Bidwaik sir, whose expertise and experience in the field of human resource is truly commendable. I would like to extend our heartfelt gratitude to Mr. Vinod Bidwaik sir for gracing us with his presence. Now I request to Dr. Meghna Bilare ma'am to felicitate Mr. Vinod Bidwaik sir. Thank you, ma'am. Sir is a global HR and management thought leader. He's having more than 25 years of experience in HR, with 20 years of leadership experience in big Indian and multinational industries, namely manufacturing, media, automobile, life science, material science, machine equipment companies. His mission is too clear: to make the difference in the life of people by empowering them three thinking sets: mindset, skill set, and tool set. Sir is currently working with AP Global and Sakar Media Group as a group director. Earlier, he was with Alpha Level, Cluster India, Middle East, Africa as a Chief Human Resource Officer, Vice President of Human Resource. Prior to this, he was working with DSM India Private Limited as a director. Without further delay, I would like to invite Mr. Vinod Bidwaik sir to share his insight on ethical leadership and long-term competitiveness. Please, sir.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon, sir. The audience is not that big, so let's make this is more interactive. And firstly, thanks Dharanjay and Meghna madam for inviting me here. It's a good opportunity to interact with you all. And topic is really interesting: ethical leadership. Much talk always happen around this topic: ethics. The buzzword, everybody speak about ethical leadership. Not leadership, but we'll start from the ethics itself. There are certain assumptions about ethical leadership because somebody may think that what is ethical? It's like a professionalism, right? So there are certain aspects of professionalism where one person always blame other that the next person is not professional. And the assumption is he or she thinks that he is always behaving professionally. So same applies to the ethical things or ethics. Everybody thinks that they are ethical, and if something goes wrong, they say that I tried best, and it was the need of the hour, something like that. So what is ethics mainly? And I would like to stress upon certain things during the next interaction. But what is your understanding? What does it exactly means ethical? And I don't want the definition as such or word, but what is your understanding about ethical? Ethics or ethical leadership. Leadership, forget about that, but let's start with the ethics as such. Any input from your end? So this is a two-way, what I see, for me it is an opportunity to learn something different also. There are most professors, faculties sitting here. So I'm not, though I am practicing leadership for 25 years, it doesn't mean that I know everything. There are certain things as an organization level we need to take certain decisions, and that I will give some case studies. But what is your understanding about ethical? Specifically, we'll speak about ethics. What do you think about ethics?
Value system.
Value system.
Principles.
Okay. Principles. same principle and value system, I think.
Morals, behavior.
Code of, we follow the ancestor, they say that, parampara, something like that. It's like a parampara has something that is code of conduct in the families. मोठे माणसं दिसली की नमस्कार करायला पाहिजे असं. आणि I have seen that because if you go in North India, specifically in certain parts of India, they touch the feet, they respect other. But in Maharashtra, it typically doesn't happen. It's totally in the families of that. But there it's a prominent and dominant practice there, and they respect the elders. That code of conduct or way of behaving came from there, and it's a huge impact because of I think the nature of the families they have. Perhaps joint families and all this, the close knitted families what they have. Perhaps that is also important. Anything else? I will share my story, my personal story. How the value system drives, your career or your personality, and when you work in different companies, how it is beneficial. As a management professional, I'm an HR professional, but I also work in different streams of management like sales, governance, compliances, and all these things. So what does it mean actually and how it is related so that I can correlate. I was a younger kid in a small village near Amravati. Was belonging this Bidwaik district. It's a very small village. So I came from there. And I was a young kid, maybe around 5th, 6th standard. At that time, how many of you know, perhaps few of us be knowing this peppermint candies around. Nowadays they mint, they package it in different ways. But at that time it was something 1 rupees one like that. So while coming from the school, I got almost 5 rupees coin, something. It is not 5 rupees, that time 5 rupees was big amount. But something 1 coin, recollect the cost of that. And I was dreaming that because I used to like most that peppermint because it was a very good taste and all these things. So I was dreaming that I got that peppermint, that coin, and I will go to the shop nearby and I will buy that peppermint. Maybe 10 peppermint in 10 paisa, something like that. So while dreaming that, I went home and I told my mother, look what I got it. It's a 10 paisa or something like that, that coin. So first what she did, she asked me the question that where you got it. I was coming from the school and I got on the road. Okay, who was there? Was there anybody? And it may be around 80s, around that. And that time the cost of 10 paisa must be definitely is bigger. So she asked a lot of questions that who was there? Have you asked somebody that whose coin it is? I said no. So what is your plan? I want to buy candies. I was adamant. So she said no, this is not your money. You go and put that money in the donation box which is in the temple outside. And she insisted. So I was very much adamant to return that. But it is not your money. You have to put that in that donation box. And she forced me to do that. That incident, I carried it full my life while working in different companies. Now imagine the situation when you work in a top level. So there are a lot of, what we can say, temptations. Because you take a lot many decisions in the organization. It is management decisions. On your one decision, there is a lot of impact on the organization. There are a lot of possibilities where people may, influence us by certain things, gratification, gifts. In most of the organization, we have policies where we don't, people are not allowed to take gifts or give the gifts to the clients and all these things. That incident always reminds me. That incident always reminds me that whatsoever I earn, I should earn what I'm, what is I'm considered for, what is the consideration in my contract. That is employment contract. And it is nothing, I will not, there are certain incidences happen in my life. In factories when you work, there are a lot of contract laborers working. Dhananjay knows that. He's the trainer in contract labor, I think, certified by ILO. There are a lot of malpractices happen in corporate world. Indian, multinational, small, big one, specifically in purchase department, in human resource department. a lot many things happened. But that incident always reminded me that, the money what you get, you should earn that. You should earn that. Whatever wealth you create, you earn that wealth. You don't borrow or don't take it from somebody else, intentionally or unintentionally. And believe me, in my whole career of 25, almost 26 years, irrespective of a lot of temptations in that, I followed that. Because that was the, what we say, lighthouse. It was Tambasto. That reminded me always. So these are certain guidelines which actually impact on our personality. Our personality has built on that. And ethical, when we speak about ethics and ethical leadership, the code of conduct, what we say, is driven from the families, from your elders, where you studied and where the professors, not professors, but the teachers, what you learn from them over a period of time. So, and there are individual rules and there are collective rules, what we say. Yam and yam, in our Vedas and in our ancient scripture, they call it two ways, yam and niyam. Anybody knows about yam and niyam? Yama and niyam. I pronounced right? Yam and niyam. Do you have any idea about that? What is yam and what is niyam? Niyam perhaps you can interpret from the word, but what is yam and niyam? It is a word. What is yam? Not that yam, Lord. It's yama and niyama. Any idea?
I think these are the Ashta Yoga, the starting point of Yam and Niyam. There are 10 rules under the Yam.
Yeah.
These are behavioral rules actually. So, asatya nahi bolna hai. That kind of rules are the 10. I cannot recollect all.
Absolutely, yeah. So YAM is the individual guidelines. It is individual rules what you follow. And Niyama is collective, is a society, as a group, as the organization what you follow. And in Yama there are simple things. Satya, Ahimsa, what Mahatma Gandhi always used to say. Satya, Ahimsa, Satyagraha, all these things. Cleanliness. And cleanliness is not about the surrounding of our bodies or things. It is also the your spiritual things, your own personality, how you can clean yourself internally and externally. So those are the individual rules what we follow. So this value systems in ethical leadership is coming two-way. And niyama is the, when you are interacting with the group, it is a collective things. Like in certain societies, what you do may not be necessarily appropriate in other societies. Like, I remember, in few years, meanwhile, I was working in an earlier company, Alfa Laval. They manufacture the equipments which actually goes in the processing industries. So that processing industries, and there are different technologies they use. That is a separation. For example, if water is to be treated, then there are separation happens, sludge and all this purification process. Or for example, they manufacture vaccines, so their separation happens. In food industry, that separation happens. Oil industry, and then heat exchangers. They actually transfer the heat for the separation. So there are multiple products. Now, Middle East is the country where liquor is not allowed, and specifically in Dubai, at certain extent, they allowed that because there are a lot of international community working there, and that is the economy. But in other, except Dubai, certain parts of the Middle East, liquor is totally banned. Like Gujarat, but not like Gujarat. Gujarat, though it is banned, it is available in certain hotels or, so you know how India works in a Niyama perspective, on that. So we actually supply the equipments to the beer manufacturing companies, beer fermentation, what they do with distillation and all these things. And there was an exhibition. Now in an exhibition, the marketing team, and the instructions of the CEO, the managing director of that country, they put the poster, big poster, visuals of beer manufacturing things. Now in Middle East, that poster is totally not accepted. And the MD was not the local, he was Spanish. expat working there. So he also didn't understood exactly what the cultural impact of that can be. And then people told them, and there are a lot of things, and then the company has to render the explanation that it is not about the Middle East, but it is, globally we also on them in the processes. So that is allowed. In India it's common, in the European countries it is common, but maybe the simple ad which it's not appropriate there. So now something in ethics point of view, we may think that ethical may not be ethical for others. And that time it comes a dilemma, because in ethical leadership, dilemma resolution is one of the things you should always keep in the mind. I have seen so many examples where leader goes in a dilemma. There is an example I would like to give in my earlier company where I was working in DSL. They are also a Dutch multinational company. They used to train us on every 2 years, and we have to certify ourselves. And there was a certification process. So we have to communicate to the organization, and it was written certification undertaking we had to take. That okay, I know the ethics policy, code of business conduct, and I will not deviate that. And the only remedy, only consequence management, what we call that as a consequence management policy, was the termination. So that was the strict rules there. And they used to train us on that every 2 years, that okay, what is the ethics things, what is the, how you need to behave in certain countries. A lot many things into there, bribe, corruption, gifts, giving gifts to the government officials. Now what happened, interaction with the government organizations, statutory bodies are very peculiar things. Most of the time they don't do their job. If we want a certification, they will keep under the table. Now government has done a wonderful job by automating most of the things. But then still they will find out and they will not approve. I remember that when I wanted to apply for the domicile certificate for my son, I applied through online. They never approve that. So finally I have to go to the physical in the municipal corporation office and get it done by paying the fees and then that to the agent. But they don't do so the government official will find out that option. Now one of our senior employee was traveling in India and he was supposed to be in India as an assignment for 2 years. So we actually took the flat and all these things in a remote place of, he was a plant head near the remote place of where the plants were there. And because of certain reasons, because that was a new colony, electricity supply was not there. Somehow the government cut off the electricity supply of that Bangalore. It was a small villa and it was cut off. And he was a very senior employee. Now our compliance guys say that calling them, they never responded. Almost 1 day, 2 days, 3 days went into that. So somebody suggested and you have to pay them, otherwise they will not come. It's like in municipal corporations, your right is to get the water in your home, but you have to pay that, chavi fira ghumane wala rehta hai, something like that. Every society pays him. It is unethical. Still we are doing that. So they asked him, somebody suggested, so he said no. Do whatsoever, will not pay anything. I will live without electricity. So we arrange small, some batteries and all this thing. He stays there almost 15 days without electricity. And finally they came. They thought that now we are not getting any money. They came and they connected the electricity. Are we ready to do that? When we say the ethical leadership, are our Indian entrepreneurs or Indian companies are willing to do that? I also work in Indian companies. I also work in multinational companies. But the compliance ethics points are very strong in multinational, not in India. There are some exceptions. So that the person who was a senior employee, he did stay almost 15 days without electricity with the families and 2 small children. So that sort of persistence in following the ethics is very important in India. And he demonstrated that if I am not paying, and that was a great example to all the managers there. Otherwise, India mein to aisa hi hota hai, you have to pay them and all these things. So we were trained in those companies that if you know, and now in India, what happens in an ethical point of view? I was dealing with a union leader. He was associated with the big regional party, NCP. They were the, and how unionism work in India. there are some faculties, I'm not sure, but if you go in blue collar things. So there was an agreement due. So what he demanded, sir, every company gives us, the union leaders, you pay us, we will complete that agreement and all this thing. Now it is common. You know, IR professionals or HR professionals may come to say something, they say we did that, but in most of the companies there is understanding between union leaders and the organization, frankly speaking. So we are not allowed to do that. So I said, no, we can't do that. So there are some companies which do, those are our multinational. I don't know about those multinational, but our company will not be, will not pay anything. अगर आपको ही pay करना है तो will pay to the directly to the workers ना. Will not pay anything. And then they insisted me, they made me personally in office, outside the office, they wanted, you know, I said, खाना पीना करो सब कैंटीन में आके अच्छा स्पेशल ट्रीटमेंट मिलेगा कुछ भी नहीं. They realize afterward, but they used to give the example of certain organizations, you know, ये तो होता ही है, all these things. But that is a compliance. That is otherwise, if you go in either Indian organization, they will say complete the agreement within so many days. We waited almost 1 hour. नहीं होगा agreement ठीक है, they will lose the money, but then we will not compromise on the disciplines and all these things. So that is very important because then those are the dilemmas. Should we pay or should not we pay? In ethical leadership, these dilemmas are very important to tackle. And another dilemma, always you have to take, there are certain dilemma resolution tools and technique. Another example, what we always encounter specifically when you travel outside. Now traveling certain countries is very easy. You go there, there is a passport. Now imagine there are certain people who travel on a project basis. They have to install the product, they have to install the plants. Take an example of the companies like L&T, Alfa Laval, there are big plants, processing plant. And that is installed in Nigeria, South African countries, which are third world countries. So there are 3 types of countries normally in the world. They call as it's like a signal, you know, green, yellow and red countries. So green countries are, they will not compromise on any things. Specifically European companies. And those European companies are the Benelux and Nordic countries. Not Italy, Spain and Germany are totally different countries. So these are green countries. Then comes the orange countries, which are actually specifically this US. So there people, if you go in Europe specifically, in certain countries of Europe, those green countries are very particular about ethics. You see, we will not raid or something, it's a corruption point of view, not that much there. You know, they are clean countries. Their index in corruption, index in human rights is always high. Happiness index, all these things, they are very high because they are very good countries. I remember when I was traveling, I was in Maastricht, which is in Netherlands. The taxi driver, they saw the person who is crossing the road, the person stopped here without any honking the horn. So that sort of discipline they have and they follow rule perfectly. Signal pe koi bhi nahi hoga to rukenge. Nobody is there because that country is not that populated. But still they will stop, of course, without any things. There are orange countries like United States, or you see the countries like Spain, Italy, France. They are particularly like India, and India also comes in orange country. So if they are not controlled, they go out of the control. Like if we follow the rules, not because we are ethical. We follow the rules because of the fear. Signal, but breaking signal is ethical or not ethical? Law of the land should be respected. That is one of the fundamental things. But what do? Our definition of ethics is the convenience for us. What is convenient for us, we behave like. And there are a lot of breaking the signal is a common phenomenon in India. They don't see because we see the color and we don't think that ethical at all. Right? So those are not controlled. If there is a camera, then perhaps we will stop. If there is a police, so those are orange countries, and it's like some European companies, Americas, and all this. And then comes the totally corrupt countries with high rate of crimes, like African countries, Brazil, Mexico, and all these things. Now, going in these countries, now imagine that my value system demands that I should not pay any bribe, and then I am assigned to go in Nigeria for the project work. Now, imagine when you do the immigration in certain countries, Even in immigration officers are corrupt. So they will, check all your documents and they will expect the dollars put in the passport. So what do you do? That is the dilemma, because then your organization is ethical. You are not allowed to pay bribe to somebody. And then if you don't pay on Nigeria, on those airport, I'm giving the Nigeria example, but that's there, or on some Brazilian, some South African countries. What you will do? That's the dilemma, na? Company to bolti hai, you are not to pay price. And companies are also important to understand that they say that you can't pay through the agents also. For example, some companies, what they do, they hire a consultant and then they do the agreement with the union, for example, and they pay the lump sum pay. If I know that it is happening, I should not do that. So if you know that you are paying to the consultant, it's also not allowed. So what do you do? It is a dilemma. You are not allowed to pay the bribe to anybody, whether you are in India or outside India. What do you do? अगर आप उनकी जगह होते तो क्या करते? That is a big dilemma, right? And if you don't pay that, those immigration officers will frame you. They will frame you with they will put something in your pocket and all this thing, and they will take you, and then your company has to do something. So that is a big dilemma. What normally the person will do in this situation? It's a case study, right? So those similar questions we used to ask to the trainer, our global team, that what should we do? Because then it is totally a life-threatening situation. You must have heard what happens in leadership, that some people working in outstation in other countries, they are kidnapped. Must have read the news in a few people, and because global companies, and then they are released after the discussion and negotiations. Few years back it happened in Noida. Noida's CEO's son, Adobe, Adobe company that there's a PDF company. Their CEO's son was kidnapped in Noida. They demanded ransom and all these things. So, release. Now what should Adobe do in that case? He's a CEO's son, and then all this situation. So those are dilemmas, and those dilemmas, leaders, every leader, I'm not speaking about the corporate leaders, every leader. The political leader में वो dilemma रहता ही नहीं. They have their own things what to do. But is a social leader, corporate leader, academics leader, maybe they have all these top dilemmas. And ethical leadership is about resolving those dilemmas, understanding. So it is not, ethical leadership is not about as such as the ethics as such, because ethics is one of the things, of course, but it is more not about what is their right, but what are the things they can do rightly is one of the fundamental aspects behind the ethical leadership. Everybody has that connotation around it. So ethical leadership starts with those value systems where organization need to imbibe. And when there is a compromise, there is compromise. Now there are certain aspects of the corporate ethical leadership I have observed over a period of time. Now, how many of you have read the reports every year? Most of the organization publish their reports, financial reports. So, कोणी ऐकलंय तो किंवा वाचलंय तो रिपोर्ट कोणत्या कंपनीचा वाचलाय कोणी? तुम्ही शेअर मार्केटमध्ये जर इन्व्हेस्ट करत असाल तर कदाचित तुम्ही वाचत असाल किंवा तुमच्या स्वतःच्या कंपनीचा. Major companies you must have read. Quarterly. Now they also publish the reports on ethics. There are few companies, they say that. Now the definition of ethics and ethical leadership is over a period of time changing. Now for example, in Indian context, now India is changing, but in other contexts, if you go there, now inclusion and diversity is the one of the trend or driving factor in most of the organization. Now inclusion, diversity is giving the opportunity to different people without biases. And inclusion is meaning they are involved, they are engaged with. So for example, if there is a gender diversity, they are equally treated and they are included. So diversity is actually, there is a very simple terminology in diversity, analogy in diversity. They said diversity is calling everybody for the party, and inclusion is taking their involvement how the party should be organized. That's a very simple thing in corporate system. Now in inclusion and diversity, there are a buzzword in India happening. Now I think there was a pride, pride and all this thing. Now in diversity inclusion from gender, they started adding different words, LGBTQ and I don't know, multiple things. Plus, 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 plus. Now, traditionally, most of the societies think that okay, gender diversity is okay, all this because we should give the equal treatment to women and all this thing. Then going forward, people started transgender is okay because that is not their fault. It is maybe some conditions they are there. Now, what's about lesbian, gays? All these things started. Now, in certain countries, this is totally discussion on that is not allowed. In our country itself, there are recent Supreme Court judgment. The government has to legalize the marriages, same-sex marriages. Now you go in some countries, you even can't discuss about it. At least in India, it is started discussing it. There are some companies who are actually asking their employees to declare their thing. Now, if your value system, your personal value system doesn't allow those things, because of some taboo or because of you think that it is right, and your organization says that it is common, there will be always conflict when you are a manager, when you are a hiring some people like that, will be conflict in your mind. Again, it is a dilemma because my personal value system is clashing with the organization value system. If somebody is working in any multinational company or maybe Godrej, because they are a very strong promoter of LGBTQ something plus plus plus, but maybe some Indian companies may not be there or yours. What you do? And it's not like an employee, but you are a leader there. You are a CEO, you are MD, or a functional head, or you are a HR head. You have to do something there. So this ethical leadership, what exactly you will do there? Because that is a class, and when there are clashes, you will be biased. When you are looking towards certain community, you will always bias. And let's recognize those biases. Because there are certain, and there is a good book written by Rob Daubeny. Rob Daubeny is the Spanish author, and the book name is The Art of Thinking Clearly. You must read that specifically, The Art of Thinking Clearly. And there is a simple 2-3 pages, 600 words. He has actually written those articles. These are very nice articles. And those articles is about biases. So every human being in this room sitting, we have almost 100 biases. More than 100 biases we carry in a day. And when we interact with the person, our biases come out. When we are interacting with women, so there are certain biases we know, gender biases. Women can't do the hard work, for example, it's a bias. Or why there should be a reservation for something. Or maybe North Indian comes in Pune, always we and they sounds, or stereotyping, a lot of biases. So there are almost more than 100 type of biases. How you manage those biases? So imagine the situation when you are a leader and you want to hire this so-called, because organization mandated that our policy is, inclusion, diversity friendly, and in your team you should hire more women, we should hire more LGBTQ, whatsoever, something. You will have biases, and then you will not give the justice to that role as a leader. So that clashes happens, and then again it is a dilemma. So I will again speak more about the how we can resolve those dilemmas. And it's totally a different world altogether. But in day-to-day life, we also face as individuals a lot of dilemmas, this or that. So how to, and ethical leadership is about understanding those dilemmas, understanding those right things. Maybe for somebody it is right, somebody may not be right. And there are so many things around the world. There are simple examples. Like if some company want to terminate somebody, or maybe they want to do a mass layoff. Now when we should do? Now it is the Diwali season. Last year something has happened in one of the company, 2 years back I think, in Ramannagar, there's an IT so-called startup, and they communicate before the Diwali. Now somebody may say it's a business decision, what ethics come into the picture? And they were told that, are those ethics? Now there is one edutech company which actually terminated a lot of employees because of the cost competitive, and they hire a football player for their brand ambassador. I don't want to take the name, but They did that. Now somebody will say that they have money to hire this brand ambassador paying millions and millions rupees because that is an international celebrity, and they are actually terminating employees. So this ethical leadership starts from the top. You can't expect that ethics from the bottom. Like that example where this expat who was working in India stay 15 days without electricity. Now, will our owner will stay 15 days without some company's MD is there? Imagine situation. Will that person stay 15 days without electricity? He said, do something. So it starts from there. Because it is very easy to preach the ethics, very difficult to follow when your leaders are not. And that's why in long term, the businesses are sustained. You see, there are companies who are almost there in this world. There is a good book, Good to Great and Built to Last. So they studied almost the companies who are more than 100 years survived in the world. Right? Why they survived? Because they have not taken any shortcuts. One of the incidents there is they have not taken any shortcuts. So either it is Indian or it is multinationals. They are there for long because they have not taken any shortcuts. And then it comes into the picture that how we are going to give the treatment to those incidences or cases where this ethics comes. So ethical leadership is very easy to say. There are certain aspects of ethical leadership. Now, what organization should do to promote that ethical leadership over a period of time? So every applicable. Now, what we started, and most of the time, what the multinationals do, they extensively train on the leadership behaviors. So, simple example that I will give the example, peculiar thing. It's very interesting that there can be small web series on that incident. It literally happened in one of the companies where I was working. I was not working that time, but I learned from the seniors working there. So the company wanted to separate almost 500 employees in India. And this was assigned. Now, how many of you will take that task? Terminate 500 employees. Nobody will take? As a part of job, we have to do that. So I have done that, but in ethical way. But I have done that. Now this incident is not about me. I have done so many. I must have interviewed and hired almost 5,000 employees in my career in different companies. And I must have terminated almost 50% of them. Not them, but because of the business decisions. Not because of the personal rivalry with them, but because of the decision. And it is not my decision, it may be somebody else's decision. But we are the public face. So what that company, they wanted to terminate 500 employees. And that was because of the business decision. And business decision have all of the justification, because once it is a business decision, it is business decision. So either it is ethical or unethical, you don't know story behind that. So that company hired, that assignment was given because there was nobody Indian willing to do that job. And the current MD of that company resigned. So they hired an Australian MD. So Australian expat came in India, and he came with the list of those 500 employees. So list was ready with him. He came, and then after 15 days after the orientation, meeting new people, he started his mission. He always used to call the department first functional head. So his management team used to call them in the cabin. He said that from Dhananjay, in your team there are 15 people. Now this is the list, and we have to separate them. And this is a package. We will pay them severance package and all this, 3 months notice period, and additional 3 months, additional 6 months depending upon their things. So everything was ready with him. He must have taken a help from somebody global. And these are the letters format. And so Dhananjay used to say that how is it possible? Then business will disturb. There will be a lot of challenges. We will not survive in India. I can't afford to lose 15 people. They are good critical resources and technically. Like in some companies, it is not rocket science. I am from media company right now. So media company is not a rocket science. Any can sell media, any can write if the content is there. But if you go specialty chemicals or maybe in rocket science, there is a rocket science and technology involved, it's very difficult. So Dhananjay, as a department here, is to say it's not possible and we will not terminate anything. So then he used to say, okay, how many people you want to retain? Now Dhananjay has the biases in his mind. So Dhananjay will say, okay, Samir is my good friend, Nilesh is my, he does good job for me, he listens me away, so he will give the name to whom he is not comfortable. So they okay, I will not retain those people, but I want to retain these 10 people, 5 people is okay. Okay. Now this 5 people's salary is this amount. What is your salary, Dhananjay? So Dhananjay will say, okay, it's exactly the same. Now put your name there and take their name out. So what used to do that, okay, if you are not taking, if you want to retain, you retain, but then you put your name first in the list. So then department head, so अभी माकड आणि याची स्टोरी माहित आहे जर स्वतःच्या याच्यावर आल्यावर तो माझा जॉब राहिला डिपार्टमेंट used to okay sir no worry we'll do that nobody is all 15 is not required. So they started a campaign and over a period of time and there was a HR head. So HR head always and this the company they give the task. So HR head, of course it is not his decision. So he was on the meeting, he communicated all these things to them. So after 3 months, mission accomplished. All the 500 people were terminated, given good package, and he was very, weird person. So somebody, I work almost in the company for 25 years, 30 years. Okay, you work, but company paid you. So that sort of things used to happen. Then he said, I want to cry. Okay, sit down. I will give the tissue paper. You cry in front of me. Somebody used to say that I want to, say something. I want to tell you something. Okay, I have enough time. So he used to listen everything. Then it was 500 complete. So HR head went in the office and he said, wonderful job, Sandra. 500. Mission completed. He opened the tower. He took the letter outside. He said, this is your letter. And then he got started. How can I help you to terminate this 500 employees? I help you all these things and now you are terminating. So what he said? He said, I don't want a person in my time who has the blood on his shirt. How much shocking this was. This is what they say as a karma. Now in whole episode, the organization point of view, it may be ethical. But these 500 people went their homes thinking that organization is unethical with them. They terminated, those 500 people never understood that it is a business decision and whatsoever the good can be done with the people, they did that. They pay the severance packages and all this. Now these 500 people will always curse that MD and that HR head that, you put that. Now what is there? Is there any fault there in business? So it is like something ethical leadership is also understanding when to do the right things and the right ways. So killing somebody is crime, but killing somebody for the defense may not be the crime. In Krishna says always, you know the story, whole story, defending. So ethics has to be considered in a perspective, and leaders in the organization or any organization has to take the appropriate call considering those dynamics. And that's why it is very important that I may have a different value system which is for my personal thing, that is yama, but for niyama is totally different. Because the way we interact with each other in the home, not necessarily we interact in the community, in the offices. We have two faces. And one face is for our beloved people where we want to be strictly ethical and want to follow that, the way of working and all these things. But it is again the perspective. For some organization doing all these things, maybe they say and they preach, there are so many things happening around behind the curtain, which common people may not be aware. Those things may be totally unethical. But then as far as you are in the organization, you have seen that you will follow your value system and you will be away from those what you are not involved. Incidentally, there was one news and that got, somebody says, their HR head was, the media company where HR head was arrested around their CEOs. This Newsflix, I think Newsclick, something like that. China funding case, China was funding. So this incidences may happen in India, every organization. And this doesn't mean that the good organizations are good because of they follow the ethical things. Or bad organizations, ethical leadership, or ethics or value system is not equivalent to the profitability and revenue of the organization. There may be a lot of organizations which are, and you know those organizations, they are giant in the country, but would you like to work with them? Perhaps we don't have the option, we would like to. But what companies the young generation want to aspire to work with? Those companies are Google, Facebook, technology companies. Now, we think that Google is ethical, Apple is ethical, Facebook is ethical. But really are those ethical? We don't know. Maybe, they may be ethical companies. So, ethical point of view, when it's organization, when niyama comes in the organization, there are certain factors which organization, and that was the reference of reports. When you read any report, you can interpret that organizations are, how much those organizations are ethical. If those organizations are public limited companies, those reports are mandatory. If those organizations are not public, those reports are not mandatory. They may publish for a selected people. But disclosure is very important to the ROC. And you can pay and you can get that report. And what comes, most of we did a research, and my experience is the majority of organizations who at least say that they are ethical organizations, they follow three things on a 3 level. One is people, second is planet, and third is profit. And they classify their whole code of conduct under these 3 areas. Most of the organizations. I work few organizations, multinational, and this is similar way. Somebody may put a customer also. So what is the people? People aspect is that we are using the resources in that country. So our stakeholders, which may be our customers, which may be our employees, or which may be the communities surrounded by us, our factories, we will make the impact in their life, and we will see that because of our product, they are not penalized. So there are 3 types of things they do. And you must have heard the terminology called as a CSR, right? Corporate Social Responsibility. So corporate social responsibility in global organization through these people profit and all. So one is just philanthropy, normally in Indian organizations. Birlas, Tatas, they have hospital, nothing related to their business, but they have that philanthropy. In Pune also there are organizations, they build hospital, they build a school, all these things, and they don't see any commercial things. Then goes to the level 2. That level 2 is about, as we are using those resources from the organization, from that community, like we are using water, we are using electricity, and that is a burden on the local community because we are using their resources, so we should pay back to them. So what they do a tree plantation, they do something to those community. That is level 2. The dangerous part is level 3, which most of the organization actually intentionally and unintentionally. Now you may ask the question, is it ethical? Now it is ethical. But if you see that is a value system, you may think that that is a dilemma. So what happened? There was one of the NGO and one of the largest toothpaste company gave the fund to that NGO to educate the children in slum area on oral hygiene. So it was a big project and millions rupees were involved in that. So the task for that NGO was to hire social workers, go to slum areas, train them educate them on oral hygiene and all these things ultimately. So this was happening well, the NGO was happy. Now in NGO's head, the head of the NGO, he was driving and all this happening. The bachche log, social workers working, they were hired from MSWs and all this thing. They were happy, doing good job and all this thing. After 6 months, the NGOs stop their payment. So why you stop the payment? We are doing our job. We did our job. So they said that the fund is not released by that corporation, that corporate. And then somebody called one of the my friend, and he shared that that the funds were not given. So what is the reason for fund? Now behind the there is a story that the organization were expecting that we invested so much on that. Now our expectation was that at least because of that oral hygiene, education and all these things, they should have used our product, because if they are habituated, you are training them, all these things, that our sales should have been increased maybe by 10% or 20%, at least. They may use any toothpaste, but at least our sales has to be here, and they have not seen any impact on their revenue there. So most of the organizations spend their money considering this level 3 rather than level 1 and level 2. If you see any organization doing this work without giving philanthropy, then those organizations are the great organization. It is philanthropy. They are doing without any expectation. Or level 2 is also okay, because they are resourcing and they are giving back what they are using. So they are building a school, and you must have seen in Bajaj build school, gardens and all this. So they are at least giving to the society. But level 3, now those organizations are considered as the most ethical organizations. Now, do you expect that from them? Ethical point of view, it is right or wrong? Level 3 CSR. Somebody may say yes, somebody may say no, because there is no right and wrong in this. It's again a dilemma, because we may think, is our perception, that if government has mandated the CSR fund, or if they want to spend on CSR, that has to be go back, and they should not expect the growth in their revenue because of that. Now, by doing this, if automatically it is happening, it's okay. If you educate them on certain things, oral hygiene and all this, and people are, that should be okay if it is going on. But you can't insist on the NGO to help them on this. Now, these things never comes on the surface. We don't know that what's happening around. Perhaps you also must be knowing that aisa bhi hota hai kya. So all those things, in an ethics points of view, somebody may say that it is ethical, somebody may say no. So it is a contextual thing. Some organization may it's bullshit. Somebody organized, and it's again a leader, depending upon the leader. So Yama and Niyama, when we speak about the individual rule of conduct or code of conduct for us, may not be necessarily equivalent to the code of conduct of the Niyama when you are interacting with the society. There are so many entrepreneurs, so many industrialists who are into the business, tobacco, liquor, gutka, all these things, and they are building the hospitals, education, institutions and all these things. So to elaborate on Yama and Niyama, I have some notes there, because I was also studying about ethical leadership, and we in our organization we follow the Indian scripture in management, where it says there are few things where Dhananjay said. One is Satya, of course. Now one Satya, one truth may not necessarily be truth for others also. Second is non-violence, ahimsa, what they say. Then asteya. Asteya is what the example I gave. My mother said, don't take what is not yours. Dastegya. Another is brahmacharya. So brahmacharya is not related to sexuality. It's about managing your energy positively. It says the energy management of your individual energy management. And then aparigraha, which is abstain from the greed. Over a period of time, we are becoming more greedy. Yesterday, I was watching one movie, The Killers of. What is that movie? Killers of Flower. Very beautiful movie. It's the story of greed. How they manage and all these things. And that is happening all over the world. And those organizations, mainly in US or European organizations, claim that they are ethical organizations. There are certain examples of Enron, for example. Satyam organization got the award from the government of India as the best governance or the best governance. And best governance means ethical organization, because if you have best governance, it means that you are following the ethical practices. Right? In Niyama it comes Sausha is cleanliness of mind and body. Second comes is a contentment, santosha. Then comes tapas, is austerity. Comes swadhyaya, self-study, self-education, all these things. And then last is Iswar Pranidharma, which means surrender to the God. The self-actualization state there. So you have to identify actually what you have a right to do, as a leader and as an individual also. I see everybody as a leader because we are leading somebody. In families, if we are parents, we are leading. And your children are watching you, how you are behaving and all this, and they are following you. So whatsoever you are, your children will be tomorrow like you because they are following you. So everybody is a leader in terms of, if you are a family person, you are a leader, you are a corporate, you are a leader. So what you have a right to do is not the leadership. It is more what is right to do, that actually what I already explained. So there are certain assumptions, and basically going forward, all these cases and all what we spoke about ethical leadership, there are certain assumptions, behavioral point of view we need to understand those. What I will show you something, read for you is one of the value document which is written for the employees. What they say that what is the expectation the employees should have as an ethical point of view and leaders should have. Ethical leadership is about what they say is a compassion. I forget about dilemma and all these things. So are you demonstrating the compassion to living animals or everybody? Even not living animals. There was one saint. So he was traveling and he was always going from one door to another door, and so his travel was very vast. So once he visited his friend. So he was waiting outside. His wife told him that the friend is. He went outside. So saint sat outside in the chowpal, something like that. And his friend came. The friend put down his shoes, and he actually touches. So that shoes, touches the shoes, and he actually demonstrates the gratitude to them. So saint told him, what you are doing? It is a non-living things. Doesn't matter. It may not matter to that things, my shoes, but it matters for me because that is protecting my, legs and that I should demonstrate that. So compassion is about how compassionate and demonstrate our gratitude with other living and non-living animals. So that also comes in. And I'm saying the behaviors. I'm not saying whether it is an ethical leadership. I don't know. But the behaviors normally they have. Eating non-veg, somebody may say that, my family doesn't allow me. Or my family value system doesn't allow me. There are people, who don't eat after 7 because they fear that there may be something into that and and they are absolutely right there. But doesn't mean that they may not be ethical. Hitler was the non-vegetarian. He never touched the liquor, शराब मेरा उसने पी नहीं. He was very much loyal to his partner, Viva Brown. He never saw other women and all this. So if you see in all these characters, he was a perfect blend of the good person. But you know what atrocities he did. And other side, the Churchill, he was to drink every day a martini. He used to enjoy his life and all these things. So he was known as an effective leader. Again, it's about the perspective. But there are certain behaviors which Hitler was missing. That was humility, honesty, integrity, accountability. Right? So, the behavior of leadership, you can identify so many. There are certain things in the world which actually you can always think that what is the thing. But ultimately it is totally depend upon the person, how you would like to be successful as a leader. Now, in the word of leader, to whom you see a successful leader? You think the effective leader.
You can influence the people.
Yes, leader can influence.
Recognized by masses.
Recognized by the masses. So there are good examples where they are influencer, they are recognized by the masses, but their business is not doing good. Will the company keep him there? So there is a difference between effective leader and popular leader, because the one of the thing always happen, and that is the derailing factor in ethical leadership. Because ethical leadership also means that I am treating everybody with respect and fairness, irrespective of my biases. When I am hiring anybody, when I am all these things will come to me. But then when you want to be a popular leader, you can't do that. Because you want to keep happy everybody. And that's why there are so many popular leaders in the world. There are examples in political sphere also. Somebody may be very popular, but may not be effective leader. So that is another assumption what we do. So at the end of the day, it is very important that the perspective of that ethical leadership and long-term things, and considering and that's why there are certain behaviors everybody need to have. One is emotional intelligence, we know all, but also the social and cultural intelligence. For example, I give the beer advertisement in Middle East will never work if you put that perspective in my earlier example. So I think these are the aspects I wanted to communicate. I'm not sure whether it is, what it was the information, whether it is useful to you or not, but I tried to give the best justice to the topic, and thanks for Dhananjay inviting for me, and wish you all the best. If you have any questions around that, I'm happy to take those questions.
I can share one story. When I was visiting one company, when I was with the assignment with the ILO, so there is a company, the IR itself tells we hire ITI holders, we give them a training, we provide them an engineering degree after 3 years, and they will not stay with us. So I said, what is the reason, what is the intention to invest on them? So he said, this is my agenda. I hire 500 should leave the company after 3 years. I said, why? He said, he will earn 50,000 rupees salary after 3 years when he will become a permanent. So that's why paying 8,000 rupees per month for 3 years and giving them a degree with a good job, that is my job profile. So can we say it is ethical or not ethical? Similarly, he is giving something for, give them out of the company.
Yeah.
There are many realizations that are taking place in my mind after hearing you. For example, I could think about Starbucks and Saudi Arabia, because the logos does not align with the ethics of Saudi Arabia. So Saudi Arabia has a different Starbucks logo and other differences. Coming back to the quarterly results and announcements, recently, if I recall it, it was Tata Motors who posted public announcements regarding sexual harassments and grievances. They listed out the grievances and what is their status.
Yeah. Actually, that is a mandatory. So Tata Motors declare that because it is mandatory. So
Yeah,
they have to mandatorily.
at least they are following it up.
Right. But you know, one point we should keep in mind, if you want to see what is the good company and ethical company, you follow their reports. And there are three things, as I said, and we discussed about CSR, but then on people front, it is also what is their, diversity score. How much leadership diversity they have, top leaders. I guess you normally what happens, and that is a very different thing as a human being. We don't recognize our biases. For example, if you are there, if the senior leader is from particular community or particular region, most of the team members will be from that region. That's common. And that is, somebody may say that yeah, meritocracy is important, but it is not there. It's the mindset of the leader. So in organizations now, what global organizations started doing, they started declaring the data of nationalities. In fact, in India, we should start declaring that data on the regional. For example, in Pune, how many Maharashtrians are working, how many North Indians working, how many in that company. Like in global organizations, in my both multinational experiences, those organizations used to declare how many Asians, how many Indians, how many Europeans, all this data they declare. That is one thing. They declare the data of women diversity, that how many women are working. Third, they declare if employees are comfortable, they ask the employees to declare their status in terms of LGBTQ. So they can declare themselves what the gender they are. Now, certain countries they don't do that because then that is not allowed in those countries, specifically in Arab countries. Then there are certain, so people point of view, all these matrices are there. Planet point of view is very, because one of the ethical things what always comes into the picture nowadays is about environmental stewardship. Like most of the times we say that like these bottles are there, plastic bottles is most of the dangerous things to the environment. So they declare their data in terms of carbon neutrality, net zero and all these things. That how they are contributing to the environment in terms of positivity and all this. There are certain things, conventional energy and all these things. And there are two benefits. They are saving the money because of the usage of that. And they are also giving the message to the employees and the community that they are serious about it. Now sometimes it's an eyewash. Coca-Cola is the largest corporation in the world with the highest profitability, which uses our water. They sell the water. They don't sell the Coca-Cola. They sell the water actually. Okay, sugar dal ke hue. They are selling only sugar. And nowadays say and cocaine in some. They add some kind of cocaine. Cocaine actually it is written on that. It's a cocaine. That's why when you drink any soft drink, Coca-Cola and all these things, you little bit get a things. The minor, and they put the sugar into that. Now they are actually, now what is their environmental stewardship? They may say that, all this we are doing for water treatment and all these things. But at the end of the day, in the water scarce countries, scarcity is there. You are getting their water and selling that water. So now for them it is totally legal, all this. So they publish that report. So that again somebody may say that now using their product is our choice, that okay, it is not in my alignment. I will not work that for that company. Somebody may say, that okay, it is not my, I will either work or I will compromise on my value system. Then they publish all this data, but they also publish the legal compliances. Paying you the minimum wages. There are so many companies which actually doesn't care about the employee. They don't pay as a minimum wages, fair wages. They have their compensation policies. They declare the salary of their top leadership. How much we are paying. And that's why in news you read that who is the highest payer. Sivan Arara today, there is a news that he is the highest paid donor, not payer. But few days back there was a list of 5 MDs whose salary is the highest. So they declare that what is their salaries and all these things. That is about the people. Planet comes all this aspect, how they are contributing. And then third is profit. So profit is the product. So when you want to see the ethical leadership, the difference between manager and leader is this, ethical leader is. The manager, MD can be the manager or who is only caring about, who is bothered about top line and bottom line. So, kitna revenue aaya and profitability. So that's the manager, that's the management. But leadership, ethical leadership is totally different. It is about they focus on the mission statement. Because when the ethical leadership, and that's why Simon Saw purpose and all this come. Simon Saw is a must have heard his videos and all these things. It's available on. He says that core of the any organization should be the purpose. Why people buy the product? It should be aligned with the purpose, and specifically young generation, where millennials and Z generation, forget about millennials, they are very much fine-tuned with this purpose. They find out the purpose of why they want to work, where they would like to work, why, and there are a lot of questions about the why. So asking, so ethical leadership is aligning your organization to the higher purpose and the mission statement, and they work for that. They don't work for the profitability, they don't work for the top line, they work for the mission. And if the mission is really work and if they get the right people there, definitely it is contributing to the profitability. Because at the end of the day, it is said that profit itself is not the purpose of the business. Profit is the byproduct of the business what they have. Profit is the one of the metrics they calculate. But at the end of the day, it is the purpose of the organization, and that's why there are most of the organization good to great and mid to loss, what the Jim Collins says, is those organizations who are driven by the purpose, not by only the profit. Yeah. Thank you. No questions? Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Now I would request to Christina to summarize the learning of today's session.
As we wrap up this enlightening session on ethical leadership, let's reflect on the profound insights we have gained today. We delved into the meaning of ethics understandings, and it's not just a set of rules, but a code of conduct. We also explored how ethics are received both individually and collectively. It's not only about personal integrity, but also about fostering a culture of honesty and fairness within organizations and communities. And as our distinguished speaker wisely emphasized, earn your wealth irrespective of your temptations by doing what is right, even in the face of alluring shortcuts and compromises. Lastly, we discussed the art of dilemma resolution. Ethical leaders embrace challenges by making decisions that prioritize the greater good even when faced with tough choices. It starts when the organization begins to imbibe. We came across a book, The Art of Thinking Clearly, as recommended by Sir. That's a must read for anyone who wishes to delve into various biases. We also learned that organization uses 3 codes of conduct, that is people, planet and profit, followed by philanthropy, a building block to sustainability without any expectations, while ethical leadership is about compassion. As you leave today, I encourage you to embrace the principles of ethical leadership in your life, making a positive impact. Thank you.
Thank you so much.